On the morning of October 30th, 2018, prison guards at USB Hazleton in West Virginia found one of America's most infamous informants lying on the floor of his cell. His name was James Whitey Bulger, the Boston mob boss who played both sides of the law for decades. His eyes had been gouged out, and his tongue was nearly severed. He was 89 years old. For years, Bulger had seemed untouchable. In South Boston, he ran the Winter Hill Gang, extortion, drugs, and murder, wrapped in Irish neighborhood politics. In secret, he was also a top-tier FBI informant, feeding agents dirt on the Italian mafia while using their protection to eliminate his own rivals. It was a partnership built on lies and blood. When that secret finally unraveled in the mid-1990s, Bulger disappeared. He spent 16 years on the run, living under aliases from Louisiana to California with his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Gregg. The FBI eventually caught him in a Santa Monica apartment in 2011, hiding cash, guns, and the ghosts of nearly 20 unsolved killings. He was sentenced to life in 2013. Inside the federal system, Bulger's notoriety was a liability. He was elderly, frail, and universally hated by mobsters who despised informants, by prison staff who saw him as a political headache. Transfers kept him moving. Florida, Oklahoma, and finally USB Hazleton in West Virginia, a notoriously violent penitentiary nicknamed Misery Mountain. Within 24 hours of arrival, the contract was carried out. Investigators later named Fotios Freddy Gesh, a former Genovese crime family hitman serving a life sentence, as one of the attackers. Gesh was known for his hate for snitches. Security footage reportedly showed multiple inmates entering Bulger's cell while guards looked away. None intervened. The Bureau of Prisoners called it a homicide investigation, but to men inside Hazleton, and to many in Boston, it was poetic closure. Same system that had once protected Whitey Bulger finally delivered him to the only courtroom he couldn't manipulate. In Medellin, the name Griselda Blanco still carries a curse. The cocaine godmother built her empire on murder and migration, flooding Miami with Colombian cocaine through the 1970s and 80s, and burying anyone who crossed it. But the most brutal chapter of her story came years after she fell, when her own son learned what happens to the family of a snitch. Griselda had 4 sons, all raised in the shadows of her criminal dynasty. 3 of them died violently in the years after her arrest. The 4th, Michael Corleone Blanco, survived by reinventing himself. But before Michael's turn to legality, one of his brothers, Osvaldo Ozzy Trujillo Blanco, couldn't escape the family's past. In the mid-2000s, Osvaldo was living quietly in Medellin after his mother's deportation from the U.S. He had become a father, kept a low profile, and according to Colombian investigators, had started cooperating with both American and local authorities about surviving cartel connections tied to his mother's old network. In 2008, that decision caught up to him. On May 29th, Osvaldo left a car wash near Berlin, neighborhood of Medellin. 2 men on motorcycles pulled up beside his SUV. They fired a burst of automatic rounds through the window, killing him instantly. Witnesses told the police. The gunman shouted his nickname before fleeing into traffic. Investigators immediately suspected a revenge hit linked to his cooperation, not against a rival gang, but against what remained of his mother's empire. The murder bore all the trademarks of a professional Sicario job: close range, daytime, multiple shooters, 0 arrests. The local tabloids called it the Godmother's Revenge. American prosecutors declined to comment publicly, but internal Colombian police reports later surfaced noting Osvaldo's recent contact with U.S. anti-narcotics agents, whether he was formally cooperating or simply being watched. remains unclear. What's certain is that he became the fourth of Blanco's sons to die by gunfire. His death effectively ended her bloodline inside Colombia. 4 years later, in 2012, Griselda Blanco herself was assassinated outside a butcher shop in Medellin, killed in the same manner she had once ordered on others. The drag racing legend Mickey Thompson and his wife Trudy were gunned down in the driveway of their Los Angeles home in 1988. It was a professional job. 2 shooters, silenced pistols, nothing stolen. For years, the case stayed cold until a man who once helped plan the hit started talking. That man was Ronald Stevens, a small-time contractor and longtime friend of Michael Goodwin, Thompson's former business partner. The 2 men had fallen out over money. Thompson accused Goodwin of embezzlement and beat him in court. Investigators believed Goodwin wanted revenge, but they had no physical evidence, just rumors and Stevens' guilty conscience. In the late 1990s, Stevens approached detectives and admitted that Goodwin had tried to recruit him years earlier for a collection job. He told them he'd backed out when he realized the target was Thompson. He remembered the planning meetings, the cash advances, the threats if he ever spoke. His cooperation turned the case. In 2001, with Stevens' testimony, prosecutors finally charged Goodwin with double murder. The trial was explosive. Defense attorneys called Stevens a liar. Prosecutors called him the key to a murder-for-hire conspiracy that had haunted LA for over a decade. Goodwin was convicted in 2007 and sentenced to life without parole. Stevens was quietly relocated under the state's witness protection program. But California's protection system wasn't built for long memories. By 2007, rumors began circulating that Stevens had been spotted back in the high desert where he used to live. Within months, he was dead, found shot twice in the chest outside a rented home near Victorville. The crime scene told its own story. No forced entry, no robbery, and a missing cell phone. Detectives ruled it a targeted killing. The gunman was never found. People in the old LA scene said the game finally caught up to him. Not in court, not in headlines, just out there in the dust, where nobody snitches twice.